And I can't imagine there's many women in the world today that don't feel some level of overwhelm, right? And there's like a
Right.
choice that something's got to give. Welcome back to the Push Pause to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Rodersheimer. On this podcast, we explore health from the inside out, starting with foundations, connection, and the conditions that allow the body to heal. Today, we have a very special guest, Anne Almquist, the savvy sorter. Not only sorts out your stuff so you can live your life, but she has sorted out raising two children into adulthood, managing family life while running her own business, and recently decided to go back to school 30 years since undergrad. Holy cow. She started the Savvy Sorter, a home organization business, in 2012 and has been coming alongside busy clients to help them declutter and set up systems for a more functional, less stressful life ever since. Her passion for organizing came to life when she was a teenager, surprising her mom by cleaning and organizing while she was working long hours in real estate. As she has watched her mom take care of everyone before herself, she recognized the need early on for self care. She strives to help clients become less overwhelmed and find more time for themselves and their families. Welcome, Anne. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. It's so good to be with you.
You too. So, your passion for organizing started by helping your mom, which I love. I think that's the sweetest thing. But it sounds like what you were really trying to do was to lighten her load. Do you think that's still what you're doing today?
Absolutely. Back then, my mom was a single mom, and so she worked really, really long hours, and just having her come home and not, seeing her working so hard, not able to relax sometimes because she had other things to do once she hit the doorstep was just, I just wanted, yeah, to lighten her load. And so I think having someone come alongside you is so critical sometimes. And just when clients call and reach out, I think that's sometimes the thing that makes the difference for them is just, we all feel like that, right? In our lives at different times. Is just if someone could come alongside us and just
Oh,
roll up
yes.
the sleeves with us, right? So
Oh, makes such a difference. I have to say, so Anne knows my basement very intimately. She's helped me in the past with cleaning and organizing. My storage room tends to be where everything gets dumped, and when I don't have time to deal with it. So, and yes, it's such a breath of fresh air to have another human being saying, "Let's do this together." Like it just
yeah.
makes such a difference. So, do you mind sharing with our listeners what you're studying now and that you've decided to go back to college after all this time?
Whew. Yes. So I went back to get my clinical counseling degree. So I'm 1 year in. I've got a little over a year left. And I decided to do that because of, some of my clients. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years. And, over the last few years, I thought, gosh, I just really wish I had more clinical knowledge and tools to be able to help them, especially ones that have just more challenging situations. And so, yeah, and thought also it would be a good thing maybe in my next season of life. Want to continue to do organizing as much as I can, though. So I love
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's, I think that no one's going to get to underneath some of our stuff than the person helping us organize our clutter, I think sometimes. So, yeah. In speaking of that, in functional medicine, we say that our symptoms are information. They're not
Mm.
inconveniences to silence. And I wonder if you think of clutter similarly. What do you think our clutter or, lack of organization might be communicating with us?
I think that clutter communicates that we've um, maybe allowed some things to slip through the cracks. And it could be our self-care, our time and attention needed to some of the things that maybe we used to be able to keep up on, just fine. But there's so many reasons why sometimes those things happen, and I think it just is communicating that maybe we need to stop and think about kind of the underlying root causes there.
Mm. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, being, whether that's overwhelm, not enough time,
Hmm.
like you said, not managing our calendar and putting room and space for ourselves in there. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to pivot to, people are often really embarrassed when someone like you might come to their house
Mm.
and see their mess and see kind of what's, like they don't probably show many other people. What's something that you wish everyone knew before they picked up the phone to call you?
I'm gonna grab a Kleenex real quick.
Sure.
So I would say that um, it's a very difficult thing to make that call. I've had so many clients over the years tell me that that was a huge step for them. And so I would just say that the word is non-judgmental. One of the things really early on in my days, as I was scouring for reviews on Angie's List, back when it was Angie's List, was
Yeah.
was seeing those comments come in from my clients that I was non-judgmental, and that was just the word that they kept using. And it's very important to me to make sure that my clients feel good about our working relationship and just how I make them feel. So,
Yeah, and I would say that's for sure rings true. And, that's, I think, in any kind of healing relationship, so to speak, which, that I think what you do is very healing for people. In my work as well, whether it's a patient with and myself or my health coaches working with a client, the there's not we can't get very far, with judgment, shame, guilt, those types of things. So it has to be a very
yeah,
safe space, right? And
absolutely.
that's where the healing can come. So
Yes,
I
yes.
love that. Yeah. So if somebody does want to pick up the phone, just know that Anne has seen it all. Or my
I don't know. I always say people will ask me that all the time, and I'm like, I will never say that I've seen it all because there will always be one more situation that I'm like, huh, okay, a little surprised by, but hopefully my clients
yeah.
never ever know about that. So,
Yeah, yeah. But that's okay. And sometimes just having somebody else, letting them in, sharing that where we are vulnerably is where we
mhm.
actually make the biggest strides.
Mm,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
you work with people in their homes every day. What have you learned about maybe the relationship with overwhelm and clutter?
I think they're hand in hand. I really do, just from my experience. And I think it's kind of a vicious cycle, really. I think that when we're overwhelmed, we feel out of control. And,
Mm,
um, you know, really our lives are so busy. And we want to be putting more attention into relationships and, the people in our lives. And if we're working full-time jobs or more, I mean, it can be even if we're not, but like managing family, whatever the
mhm.
situation is, that's just one of those things that seems easiest to kind of let go by the wayside. And then, until it's not. And all of a sudden we're kind of pushed, to reconcile with it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. And I mean, can't imagine there's many women in the world today that don't feel some level of overwhelm, right? And there's like a
Right.
choice that something's got to give, right? Like we literally can't do it all, and very
Right.
easily without maybe some
Mm.
support and some help. So yeah, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And when I'll say along those same lines, if somebody gets some help with the clutter, like they invite you in or choose to do it on their own, that leads to the opposite, right? There's a feeling of
Yeah.
what would you say? Like what's one when you get to the other end of that project with a client, how are they feeling in the long run?
So take for instance, I just had a client over the weekend and she had texted me at the end of the week and just said, "Do you have any time this weekend?" And I hadn't seen her for quite a few months, and she just had some paper pileups that you'd walk into her house and, everything seems just, totally fine and organized, but then, maybe just that you open that cabinet and all of a sudden, like, that's kind of where she stashed the papers. And so for her, a couple of really big stacks of, like a foot high stacks of paperwork, she just said, would you be willing to just help me make files? And, of course, my answer was absolutely. I've done paperwork for days with clients, but in, 3 to 4 hours, we had all of that, recycled, shredded, and then all the files made. And I mean, just seeing how great she felt and just hearing her comments about, I mean, as we were progressing, just, oh, we're blasting through this and, this is making such a difference and just how I feel that we're conquering this and I'm finally dealing with it. So
I love that.
yeah.
So quite a sense of relief from some of the overwhelm
Yeah, a
that,
sense of relief. Yeah,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
definitely. And you have mentioned that clutter shows up often in seasons of life transitions.
hmm
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think whether it is, relationship changes or challenges, whether it's a loss or a period of grief or a move. I mean, some of these things, maybe we've just inherited a bunch of items, or in a panic or in a hurry, we've had to bring a stockpile of things home. A lot of times, when the kids move home from college for the summer, or we have like a living room full of things. Like there's so many things that are not really necessarily like our choice, if it was our choice, but things that land on our plate, that we have to deal with, and sometimes it takes a while to get motivated.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure. Especially if you're dealing with the emotions of the life
yeah,
transition. On top, yeah,
exactly.
I've had several clients and know people. A parent passes away, and like you said,
hmm
suddenly you've got to get everything out of the house, and there's not enough time to make big decisions about things. So it just ends up in your
Yeah,
house, and then now you're staring
that's
at it
it.
every day, and yeah, that can
Yeah.
feel so overwhelming.
And alongside that, if you're going through grief, there's sadness and, sometimes depression or
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and those things also just, can feel very burdensome. And so just seeing clear to be able to realize that you need help or that you need to take some time to start working on those things is hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like if we don't look at the clutter, we don't have to think about the emotion that's
Mm,
attached to it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
good.
Let's talk about decision fatigue. And I
Mm,
think this is a pervasive problem, not just with
yeah.
decluttering, but like life in
hmm
general. We are thrown so many decisions our way every single day. And then we come to
Sure.
a project like some decluttering, and now it's
hmm
decision after decision after decision. Um,
Yeah.
can you tell us about uh, how that is that you help somebody with that, or
hmm
some techniques around that dealing with that decision fatigue?
Sure. I think just taking it in small steps, I think is the way to go. Hitting the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, seeing
Mm-hmm.
those easy wins because they can lead to bigger wins. Things like that where it can be overwhelming, and having someone come alongside can make it a little extra motivating. But I have different strategies, for clients that can really help to pivot. Sometimes it's let's hit a different area, or let's hit a different pile, or let's talk about some of these things for a while, and maybe why we're having a hard time getting through those things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can be a little while, because
Yeah,
there's more behind it.
sure.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah, that's great. I think, in my case, like just having had someone like yourself there to just say, what do we think about this?
mm,
And talk through can make a big difference. And maybe some ways about holding on to memories. A lot of the times it's like, well, I don't want to let go of something because there's a memory attached. But,
Sure.
You've
Hmm.
been great to guide with like, well, let's take a picture of it, or is it
Hmm.
actually the thing, or what is it about that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that ha- decluttering, which can be so empowering and feel so good, is um, comes with a lot of decisions. But if you have somebody helping
Yes.
guide you, it can be so much simpler.
And
Yeah,
also just not to be hard on yourself. Like if you're doing it yourself, just to take it in spurts. I mean, one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is, in between times, whether it's homework or if they're just going it alone, like just set a timer, just for 20 minutes. You don't have to do the whole 3 or 4 hour session like we would together because it's
yeah,
different when you're on your own. Because it can, if you go that long haul and you don't get as much accomplished, it can feel really defeating.
hmm,
And then it'll take a lot longer before you want to hit that again. And so, taking it in small increments or,
I love
if
that.
it's just 20 minutes a day or a few times a week and just feeling fantastic about I accomplished it. And maybe next time I'll up it from 20 to 30 minutes, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
No, I love that. I love that. And that's then the fatigue is not nearly the problem when you only have to spend that
Hmm.
bit of time. So
Yeah.
that's great. And can you tell us like how do you see physical clutter affecting the nervous system?
So I think that it's like a stress signal. It's
Mm,
like it sees it as stress. And
hmm.
I've been learning a lot this year, obviously in my
Yeah.
classes, and so I think it just overwhelms our prefrontal cortex. It's like, woo, like fight or
Yes.
flight, and we tend to flight, especially from the basement sometimes. I mean, in Ohio we have a lot of basements, and it's kind of that drop and slam the door and run, and those spaces can be really overwhelming,
Hmm.
and we just kind of want to forget that they exist. So
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I think there's a it's in my mind when if you're looking at clutter every day, it's sort of like there's a to-do list that you're staring at that it's there every day. It's not going anywhere until you start tackling it. It's like, oh,
yeah.
nothing's complete. So yeah, our nervous
Hmm.
system doesn't feel as safe or calm. It's harder to relax
Yeah,
when you're staring
exactly.
at a job, right? You don't really feel
Hmm.
like doing generally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. I love you. When you and I were talking beforehand, you brought up the idea of the consumer culture that we live in,
Mm,
and I would love
yeah.
to spend a few minutes because, if you don't stop and step back and think about it, you get really sucked in to,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of really smart people marketing to us in
Hmm.
all the different types of media that we witness, whether it's social media, the TV, news outlets.
Hmm.
Everyone's tracking you and what you're interested in, and then they're going to show you
Right.
that product 100 times, and suddenly it's like the
Hmm.
only way we feel like we can be happy or successful is to purchase something.
Right.
Yeah, and so I
Yeah.
don't know. I'd love to hear your take on that, kind of the culture of consumerism, and
Sure.
yeah, what you would say from that standpoint.
I mean, I would say it happens to me too, I mean, we were bombarded with these, you know, but maybe attractive people and attractive products, and this kind of hits us like, is this something I need to do or something I
Mhm.
need to purchase? And I've had clients that will buy $1,000 worth of stuff at the Container Store, but until we have our session, it's you know hopefully there's a receipt laying around, because
Yeah.
because it's the kind of thing where we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. Sometimes in their space, they're not going to need those particular products, and I just think we just have to evaluate, like, if I'm motivated in some way by something that I'm watching, you know, what is it about that, that I think I need, and why do I think I need it, and do
Mhm.
I really need it? And I've had clients that I've worked with for years that will say, when I'm out and about now, I think of things differently, because I think, what would you say, and kind of where are we going to put it? How are we
Yeah,
going to use it?
that's
But
great.
I think that I mean, I think that from body image to,
Hmm.
house image,
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
they're not who we are. It's not our space. So it's sometimes really hard to decipher and discern,
Yeah.
what we really need.
Well, there's a reason why most people can't walk out of Target without spending, $100 when you went in for the one thing, right? They know what they're doing. But
Exactly.
so
Yep.
you started a little, I would love, can you pull out some of those questions? If we are considering a
Hmm.
purchase,
Yeah.
maybe there's a little bit of a checklist. I love that your clients are like, oh, what would Anne say? Like people
Yeah.
tell me all the time, they're like, what would Dr. Emily say? Oh no, I shouldn't be doing that or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah.
So could you
Yeah.
give us Anne's checklist prior to purchasing? What kind of things, what ideas or thoughts should we have?
Sure. I think that, I mean, first of all, it's maybe, why do I feel like I need it? Sometimes we are going to buy something based on feelings, not
Mm,
on
absolutely.
concrete facts, of maybe what we need. And so I think the question that always comes down to, and that kind of mantra I get into my client's head a little bit on, is just where is it going to go?
Mm,
How am I going to use it? So if it has a home, it can find a home, because that's part of my strategy with clients is initially, that sorting like items together, purging as much as possible, and then that third step is assigning a home. And so that process is just repeated over and over again. So if that's kind of in our minds, then we're always going to have to assign a home to what it is. And let's say it's not organizational products, or something for under our kitchen sink to organize things there. It's clothing. And,
mm,
we have a bar that's falling down in our closet. And so, or all of our closets, you know what I mean? And so it's like,
yeah.
how do we reconcile with purchasing, more items? And that's a signal then, like, okay, if it's maybe I need a different size, and okay, but what are
Yeah.
we going to do about how to fit it in,
I love that.
those kinds of things. So,
Yeah, where does it have a home? That's great.
hmm.
Like where can it be? Because if there's no space for it, then maybe we need to reevaluate before we purchase it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really great. And I think the more we can think through, because I think purchasing things similar to eating something sweet or having some alcohol or there's also other ways that we can get sort of quick dopamine hits, right?
Right. Hmm.
Buying and purchasing things, whether online or in the store,
Yeah.
there's a quick little hit. You feel good,
Hmm.
but we're looking at like long term. How is that purchase going to impact you? Right. That's so to
Right.
stop. Even this is lovely because my podcast is called Push Pause to Heal, but I'm in this
Mm.
case like push pause before you purchase. And
Absolutely.
just think through those couple
Hmm.
things, and I love that, and it makes, I think it's going to make our listeners lives whole lot easier. I'm going to remember that for myself for sure.
Great.
um, do you have anything to say for those of us or people who might feel regretful, like okay, I overdid it. I know I purchased things. Maybe I can't return them at this point, or I have had this
Yeah.
bad habit I'm trying to work on.
Hmm.
What would you say there?
I would say it's okay. It's just, take a deep breath,
Mm,
and we can just think about trying some strategies to do, not necessarily just better next time, but just think about that process that kind of
mm,
creates that desire in us, or feeling in us to do those things. What leads to it? Like that cognitive behavioral therapy, like the thoughts leading to the behaviors,
sure.
and just kind of break that down a little bit. But I really just like be gentle with
Mm-hmm.
ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and
Absolutely.
forgiving of ourselves. And um it's stuff. And I think, prices of things can really be something, that's a reason that people hold on to things, even if it was from like long ago,
Yeah.
and it's kind of trying to get in the mindset of how is that impeding our move into our next season of life, or like into the next step of, things we want to embrace in our lives. So,
I like that. I like that. Yeah. I do think I would agree, like, and regrets or feeling regrets will just hold us in the past, right? And so
yeah,
many of my clients like, oh, I messed up and I had X, Y, or Z thing that I was trying not to eat. Well, yeah, we really if the faster we can let go of the regret and have some
yes,
self-compassion, you know,
so true.
and then remember that it's
Hmm.
literally we can start over in every moment. So,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, great. Let's talk about a little bit about, how maybe certain things that we're having a hard time getting rid of might be tied to our identity. And do you
Hmm.
sometimes see people keeping things because they're attached to who they used to be when they were using that thing?
I think that's true. I think also it could be, um, just a hard time of life they went through, or even trauma or something like that
Mm,
that they've experienced. Or another thing that I see is like unmet expectations, unmet expectations of ourselves or
mm,
of what we thought maybe the current season of life would look like. And so just trying to encourage people that we don't have to hold on to things if we don't need them, if we don't use them.
mm,
I think sometimes there's voices in our heads that are not even, they're from like our family members or,
mm,
I see that quite often, and it's great to receive a gift with gratitude, but it doesn't mean that we have to hold on to it. So,
mm.
I think thinking about moving forward in our lives as opposed to looking back, kind of like what you were saying before.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. That's great. And I think you mentioned clothes, and I think one
Hmm.
thing that a lot of times people do hold on to maybe the jeans that they wore in high school, and someday I'm gonna get back there. And while that's maybe a good goal to have, maybe not terribly realistic for most of us, but would you have anything to say about that person who's maybe in between sizes, or
Yeah.
anything in particular, because I just think that's a really common occurrence, or common
It
concern.
is
Yeah.
common. Yeah, I would say that I'm thinking of a scenario with a client right now that clothing sizes have been, a challenge, like trying to figure out how much to keep of what size because there's lots of fluctuations
Mm-hmm.
there due to different health concerns. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I would say that, it's kind of about setting limits is the way I look at it because, sometimes we have plenty of room, but sometimes that might be just an excuse to hang on to things longer. And so I just say, let's set some limits. So whether it's a bin or two, that goes in the basement or
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, and it's labeled well so that you can find it quickly and easily when you need it. If it's one size down and one size up, that kind of thing. And I usually try to encourage people not to like expand those categories too much because styles change,
Yes.
how we feel about the way we look in clothes changes, and there's always trading them in and going to a secondhand store and turning them in and getting money. That there's that as well, and
Sure.
I always encourage people to try that if that helps to feel better about
Mhm.
yes, these were expensive clothes 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but those places can be so ruthless when they're sorting through things, and just kind of getting in a realistic mindset and setting limits, I think are the
Yeah.
most important things there.
That's great. Yeah. I love that. And I spend a lot of time talking about nutrition and sleep and all the
Mm.
things in functional medicine, but truly the environment where we live really
Mm.
impacts our health also.
Yeah,
And so I
absolutely.
wonder if you have any examples that you can share, or how you see that play out, maybe any stories of clients, or that, it's really kind of impacted their health.
I would say one of the clients I'm thinking of right now, as you say that, is a client who had a couple of losses in the family, a parent and then a sibling, and she's an adult and actually retirement age. But all of that hit her at one time. And then
Mm.
she also had just moved. And so it was like the move and then a loss and then another loss.
Wow.
And so all those feelings of, being overwhelmed and the grief and just working through all of that, just created a situation for her where it was tough to move
Yeah.
forward with her own belongings. And then she, took on belongings of two in estates of two, other people. And so those things can be really, really challenging. And so working with her after I think she said she had moved in, it was like 3 years ago to like start unpacking boxes
Mm.
finally that were sitting, in many rooms of the house so that
Sure.
she could start to really enjoy her own space. And it was just wonderful to see as we were working through, different spaces and going, this room, check, this room, check, and just finally getting to some of those areas that she'd wanted to get to for a long, long time and just feeling freed up and
Yes.
just lighter by not having that visual clutter around anymore.
Yeah,
So,
I can almost kind of feel like a lightness to my energy when you're telling me about, oh, she's got
mm,
this room done and this room done. You can
yeah.
imagine. Yeah. I have had a couple clients who, for whatever reason, maybe their house is, one project got started over here and another
Mm,
project over there, and it's sort of, that kind of idea. And one thing I encouraged, and I don't know if you want to chime in on this, is even if there's just one small space that
yes.
is free and clear where you can go and your nervous system
Hmm.
can feel safe and calm. I don't know,
Yeah.
if you had to work in that manner?
Absolutely. I think dealing with those spaces that are front and center for us, where we spend the most time, or it could be a little retreat spot or
Mhm.
a second bedroom or a guest bedroom or a little nook somewhere, just it's amazing how carving out a space like that for ourselves, free of clutter, can
Mhm.
really free us up to feel better and feel like we can tackle some of those other things that we have to do on our to-do list. Because just because we are tackling our clutter doesn't mean we don't have all the other things happening in our lives that are coming
Right.
at us, like kids and jobs and helping our own parents and going through menopause or like what like whatever the
Yeah.
other things
You
are that
name
we
it.
have on our
Yeah.
plate. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's a lot, even when we are managing, those
Mhm.
things.
It really
So,
is. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Um, if someone listening feels overwhelmed currently by their clutter,
yeah.
where would you start? Would it be that 20-minute timer and start there? Is that kind of what you would suggest?
It just start small and feel great about it.
Mm.
It's so, like the low hanging fruit or just,
Yes.
grabbing a pile and sitting with it. And I mean, I love timers. I set them all the time for everything. And so, just whether it's setting aside Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever days, and it's when you have a good amount of energy. I will say that. And I
Mm.
tell clients that a lot. Like, I'm a night owl, so I get energy in the evening and not everybody does. Some people are getting up at 5 in the morning. And
Yeah.
so like whatever that time frame is when you have that little chunk of time, set a
Mhm.
timer, set whatever days of the week and just, hit those piles, and just make decisions on, whether things can go and then where the homes are going to be and then feel great about it, and
Mm.
then that's I think really motivating, to keep going. So
I love the feel great about it. I love that because sometimes we get something like we accomplish something that's really good for us, and then we're just, oh, okay, now what do I have to do? And we
right, or we
forget to
don't give
celebrate.
ourselves enough credit. I'm so
Mhm.
sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you.
you're fine.
We just we kind of beat ourselves up sometimes, like ugh, I wish I'd done 2 hours, like I
Yes.
really I really should have, I just don't feel like it right now, and then feel bad about that. It's like, no, embrace those things that the challenges you've
Yeah.
met and faced, and even if it's a little pile of mail or clutter, papers or, whatever it is, just feel good about that.
I love that. That's we have to remember that. So that's a takeaway I would love for everyone to remember is, in those smaller goals can be really
Hmm.
great because then we get to feel good quickly. And if you
Yeah,
set a
absolutely.
3 hour goal for yourself, like, and where it's harder to hit, and then that allowance of us to just feel proud and good that we did something is much
Yeah.
harder to reach. So
Hmm.
yeah, I love that. Is there anything else as we wrap up our conversation? Anything else that we didn't discuss that you kind of wish our listeners knew, or some words of wisdom or encouragement or anything else you want to share?
I would just say that, like, it just came to me, start somewhere. And
Mm,
we've talked about that a lot, I think, over the podcast, but just, don't be afraid to just start.
mm,
You don't have to be ball and chain to it for hours on end, but just start somewhere
yeah,
and then recognize that you've done it and feel great
feel
about it.
good.
So.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. And where can our listeners connect or learn more about you, or if they're feeling your Anne is in the Central Ohio area. So if someone really wants to have you come and help them with their clutter, how can they reach you?
So they can find me on Facebook, Instagram at the Savvy Sorter. So my website is thesavvysorter.com. So
Okay,
those are the
great.
ways. Yeah.
Okay, I'll include all that on in the show notes. And
Great.
I would love to ask Anne, because my podcast is called Push Pause to Heal, and I'm on a mission to normalize rest for women. I'd love to ask you,
Mm.
what is your favorite way to push pause for yourself?
Whew. I have a few. I would say sometimes I push pause and I pray,
Mm,
and that's connected to
excellent.
my faith.
Yes.
I also just get outside in nature, go for a walk, get on the water, go kayaking.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so those are a few
I
of the
love it.
things I do.
I
Hmm.
love that. That's great. Well, I just thank you so much for joining us today. And if today's conversation resonated with you, please take a moment to share this episode with someone you love who might benefit, and help
Yeah.
Anne and I spread the message that there's support sometimes is all you need to feel a whole lot different in a short period of time. So thanks
Mm.
again, Anne.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.